Once upon a time, there was a group of people living on the broad and resourceful land of Western America. They hunted in the mountains, fished in rivers, and traveled across the boundaries with the most fruitful farmlands. After thousands of years, the descendants split into many families. Some of them went south to Mexico, while the others, including Western Numu branch, migrated north to Oregon. The Western Numu people settled in what's now the Warm Springs Reservation, and somewhere they traveled to the nearby Cascade Mountains to hunt, pick berries, and dig for roots. In spring and fall, they went to the Columbia River for fishing and trading. They continued their self-sufficient life for many centuries with the Uto-Aztecan language they were proud of, Numu. Numu, however, faced a tremendous challenge since the 18th century. By the 1850s, thousands of white settlers entered the region of West Oregon. Numu territories were then invaded. Not until 1855 did the hard time truly begin. Joel Palmer, the superintendent for the Oregon Territory, received an order to sweep Native Americans away from their homelands, and fair treaties were established. From now on, this area is named the Warm Springs Reservation by the Federation. As for compensation, we kindly promise protection of your rights to fish, to hunt, to gather in traditional areas, and to govern your own affairs, all within this reservation. The Numu people were forced to give up claims to more than 10 million acres of traditionally occupied land in exchange for a small, barren reservation covering little more than 1,000 square miles. At the turn of the 19th century, the Federation government began drafting policies aimed at civilizing Native American people through the spread of Western cultural norms. These policies began with the founding of missionary schools through the Civilization Fund Act of 1819. The first schools were established by Christian missionaries, many of whom did attempt to learn local languages and tolerated the use of Numu in classes. However, government-funded boarding schools started to replace the missionaries during the 1850s. In order to eliminate the socializing effect of families and the local community, the students were required to stay in boarding schools, away from their parents. English was used as the only medium for teaching since 1880, and the use of Numu was strictly prohibited. Western culture dominated in the boarding schools, while Numu language and culture were banished in the darkest corner. Conditions inside those schools were deplorable. Children suffered intense homesickness, communicable diseases, and emotional abuse. A fear of Numu was created as a result. Children could still communicate with their parents with limited proficiency of English, but the communication with the grandparents diminished. The motion was further emphasized by the Commissioner of Indian Affairs, J.D.C. Akins. The instruction of Indians in the vernacular is not only of no use to them, but is detrimental to the cause of their education and civilization, and it will not be permitted in any Indian school, he claimed. There had been voices opposing the boarding school concept as early as the late 19th century, ranging from the way in which the natives were taught, the oppression of their language and culture, and untrained teachers. Nevertheless, those opinions never won, and Numu faced even more challenges. One of these challenges can be commonly found in other rural areas like some villages in China and Africa. Yeah, it is poverty. It is not only lowering the living standard of people living in Oregon, but also stripping them of the chances of learning Numu. Let's have a brief insight into the situation. At a very young age, a child already needed to help with the housework, for example, collecting timber. Classes teaching Numu were deemed less essential to life than working. Even parents wanted their children to learn English over acquiring their vernacular language. In turns, it became very common for Numu classes to be completely empty. Many minority language communities have paid lots of efforts on protecting and revitalizing the languages, and Numu is one of those. The Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs had sent fluent speakers Numu to Summer American Indian Language Development Institute for better indigenous language education. Classes were then arranged in elementary schools there. It is said that the effectiveness of the classes were hindered by poverty. The Warm Springs, around 30% of families and populations live under the poverty line. Both adults and children had to work hard to earn a living. Social studies have shown that people did understand the importance of speaking the tribal language, but they didn't have the time to do so. The familial and work-related obligations have stopped them from learning Numu. Another reason behind the failure of revival of Numu is the transformation of language. It actually hybridized with English in recent years. These affected language in two ways. First, it's difficult to teach the children and adults real Numu in an environment filled with English-mixed hybrid. What they usually heard and speak was not the traditional variety. This made learning original Numu a really difficult task. Moreover, research shows that whether or not an incorrect utterance is tolerated or even noticed may depend entirely on if the speaker is perceived to be part of the speech community or not. Nowadays, the speech community has shifted towards the English hybrid. The new Numu, with all those new mistakes, become the norm. Together with the metropolitan dominance of English, they are a strong push and pull forces stopping people from learning traditional Numu. Among all the factors mentioned, it is believed that historical reason of Caucasian colonization holds dominant position in the decline of Numu. The reason is actually very common among other endangered languages found in former colonies, for example Africa. The top-down political pressure from the colonial government had great impact on the language shift. It's undoubted that American Indians have to struggle for a living nowadays, but without the white man's settlement, Numu won't be transformed into English-based Numu. Pulling factors like the rise of English would promote some extent of language shift for sure, but it is highly doubted that Numu would die out so rapidly without government's interference. Thus, what is spoken daily would still be the intact form of the language, not the hybrid form. Nowadays, Numu has only 500 speakers, with only 10 remaining in the warm strains. It is still spoken by a small group of indigenous people, but is not passed intergenerationally. Rated as level 7 on the official scale of language endangerment, in which level 8 is the most fatal, no one would dare to claim that Uto-Aztecan language can be revived as a mean for daily communication. Numu had come to a point of no return on its way into the oblivion.